So I am starting the recording right now. All right, welcome. We are going to work on this module or lesson 4 for Microsoft Word. And so today is going to be all about formatting documents. So you'll notice that I've got this file. It was the one that I sent out via email, 4-1. And then you'll notice that it's several pages. It's like a 5-page document. And so and right now I've got it on in my view. I'm looking at in multiple pages. So if you want to do the same thing to kind of get a feel for this document, you're welcome to do that as well. And again, it's on the View tab in your Zoom group, and it's the multiple pages option. And so I'm just going to scroll through this, and you can see we've got a very long document. Scroll through it really quickly, and then we'll kind of just focus on a couple different things. So one of the things that we can notice right away, there's a lot of white space in this document. And so we're going to kind of alleviate some of that. This travel health to go text is enormous, taking up a third of a page, totally unnecessary. And then we've got a lot of white space kind of wasted off over on the right side of the page over here as well. A lot of wasted space at the bottom. Again, some pictures with a lot of white space. We've got a little area, a blank area right here. We're going to add something in there. Yeah, we're going to add a table in there. But we can see that it's a very long document, but there's a lot of wasted space in it as well. And so we're going to really start to trim this up and make it a little more compact, so it's easier to navigate. So let's go ahead and first thing we're going to do is we're going to save this right away, and we're going to call it that Travel Health to Go. I think I indicated in the email. So I'm just going to do File, Save As, and then I'm going to navigate to where I save mine on my desktop. And then it's in the Word file for me. And again, yours might be different. And I'm just going to click in here to select that file name, click again, and it will allow me to edit it. And I'm just going to type over that one with Travel Health to Go. All right, so let's go ahead and save it. Okay, so now we've got this document saved. I'm going to come back to page width to view it in page width. So we can see that's a little close. I don't want to do 100% because it's going to make it a little too small, but I'll come back a little. All right, that's a little more manageable. And again, if there's something you're having a problem seeing, if you have a question, by all means, just go ahead and chime right on in. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said before, we've got a lot of white space around this margin, and so we are going to trim that margin back a little bit. So if you've navigated through it, I'm going to do my Control Home to go back to the beginning of my document. If you don't have that Control Home capability, just scroll up to the very top and then click in front of the T in the Travel Health to Go, and that'll get you to that beginning. We're going to navigate over to our Layout tab. So come over to Layout, and then you'll notice in our Page Setup area, we've got margins, orientation, size, columns, etc. We're going to click on this margins option. And so you can see right now we've got a normal margin, but there's a lot of other options as well. We've got a moderate margin, which you can see it gives us a 1-inch top and bottom border, but it also gives us a 0.75 left and right. This wide is going to give us 1 inch on the top and bottom, but 2 inches to the left and right. And the mirrored, and the way to think about mirrored is just like this picture shows. It's if you had a book. And so back in the day, when I was younger, when I was in school, we always used to have a 1 1/4 inch margin on the left, and then a 1 inch margin on the right. And what that quarter extra inch was for is if we had to like packet it. So if we had to put a staple in it, or staple the inside edge, or put it in a little sleeve with like a binder clip on the outside so people could look at it like a book. Well, that extra 1/4 inch was for something like that. But so now mirrored is going to give you, let's say we want that 1 1/4 on the inside, but 1 inch on the outside. So on page number 1, we'd have 1 inch out here, and then 1 1/4 out here. On page 2, we'd have 1 1/4 here, and then 1 inch out here, because like we saw before, if we looked at these together, this is our inside margin, and this is where that extra 1/4 inch would be. And so it's just if you're going to create a document that's going to be bound together, that's when you would want to use that extra spacing. But so we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose the custom margin option because we want to customize our margin. We don't want to use any of the default ones here. Oh, and then we also got that narrow margin, which is 1/2 inch all around. So let's go to the custom margin option. And then again, so right now our document is 5 pages long, and we're going to choose 0.7 to the top, bottom, left, and right. So all of these we're going to change to 0.7. So I'm just going to type 0.7 in that first one, and then tab, 0.7, tab. And then again, if you want to use your little up and down arrows, they go by increments of 1/10 of an inch. You can just click on those as well. But we want to make our top, bottom, left, and right all at a 0.7 inch margin. And so we've got that. We're going to keep it at portrait, and then we're going to go ahead and say OK to apply that margin. And then now if we take a look at it, you can see we've still got 5 pages, but we've got a lot less on that 1 page. So by just adjusting those margins a little bit, we saved a lot of real estate in our document. All right, so I'm going to go back to the top of my document. And then again, if you want to look at it, what it looks like in multiple pages, that's in our View tab, Zoom group. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and we are going to work on creating sections. And so what sections are, it's a different way for us to tell the program or tell the application that we're going to make a change coming up. And so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to put this into columns. So we've got all of this text right here in the middle of this document. So we're going to create columns for this, but we want the top, this travel health to go, to maintain that 1 column across the top. So what we're going to do is I'm going to right click down here on my status bar. So this is our status bar right down here, this gray object. And so right now you can see mine does say section 1. So I've got my formatted page, my section, my current page, I've got my vertical positioning, and then I've also got my word count. If those aren't, and then my spelling. If those aren't showing for you right now, you can customize that status bar to let it show whatever you need it to show just by right clicking on it. And then it's going to go ahead and open up this customized status bar. And then just make sure you've got that section object or command selected. And again, these are different ways you can see when I click it off and on, it modifies how my status bar appears. But when we're working with sections, we want to make sure that we have the section selected so we know if we can just have a quick view of what section we're in when we're working in it. All right, so I've got it gone in, changed that setting so my sections are showing. And then now the first thing we're going to do is we are going to come right to this, let me zoom in a little bit again so you can see it. We're going to come right in front of this general considerations. So I'm going to bring my insertion point right in front of general considerations. Now the first thing I'm going to do, and I would encourage you to do it as well, is to turn on those formatting marks. And so again, that's in our home tab, our paragraph group. You can also hit the Control asterisk to do this, Control Shift 8. We'll turn on those formatting marks as well. But when we're creating the sections, we want to be able to see where we're creating them. And when we do this in just a minute, you'll see what it looks like when we've created a sections. And so if something's ever going wonky with your document, that's the first thing I would do is say, turn on the formatting marks to make sure you haven't inadvertently inserted a section somewhere. But so we've got that general considerations, our insertion point is right in front of that. I'm going to go to my layout tab. And then right over here, we've got our page setup. We've got these breaks. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on that little down pointing arrow to select, to see what kind of breaks we have available to us. So you can see we've got a couple different breaks. We've got page breaks at the top, and then we've got section breaks at the bottom. So we've got a page break, which is a true break. It takes us where our insertion point is selected, and it will create a new page at that point. The column breaks are going to break in a page where we want to put a column. And so we're going to do this in just a little bit. And then we've also got text wrapping breaks. But then these other ones are section breaks. We've got a next page section break, a continuous section break, and then even and odd page section breaks. So we're going to use the page, column, and continuous breaks today. We're not going to use these even and odd pages or the text wrapping options. But with that down point, with that little arrow selected, so we can see all these different options, we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert a continuous section break. And so you'll see when we do that, it's going to automatically put in the paragraph above where we've inserted it. That's where it's going to appear. And so if we would have clicked right here and inserted that page break, or that section break, excuse me, we wouldn't have been able to see it because this text goes all the way over here. So we might have seen like a little dot or something over here, but that's the only way we would know we were in a section, unless if we click right up on the top in this Travel Health to Go, and if we look down in our status bar, it'll say section 1. If we click below this line into general considerations, it'll now change to section 2. And again, if this is probably new to either one or both of you, so if you have a question about it, or if you just didn't get it, by all means, don't let me get too far ahead. Just jump in and say, Shane, stop. I need to redo that, and I'm happy to do that. All right, so now with our insertion point still down here in this section 2, we're going to come up to this columns option in our page setup group. Click on columns, and then we're going to change it to actually we're going to do more columns. Let's click on more columns because we want to modify this a little bit. So you can see normally we don't think of a regular page that's printed in columns, but it's actually in the Microsoft Office world, this is considered one column. If the text isn't broken by a column break, then it's all considered one column. And so we're going to change this to 2 columns. So let's go ahead and click the 2 column option. And then you can see it automatically gives us a ½ inch space in between those columns. But we want to adjust that a little bit. So we're just going to click down to this spacing option, the little down pointing arrow, and change it to 0.3. And again, it goes by increments of 0.10 or 0.1, 1/10 of an inch. So we're going to click it down 2 times. And then you'll notice when we do that, the column width changes a little bit while the space, so the columns get a little bit wider in uniform, and this column spacing gets a little narrower. All right. Now, if you've ever seen an article where they've got into 2 columns and they've got kind of that divider down the middle, if we wanted to do that, we would just click on this line between, and it will put that line in between those columns. We don't need it for this project, but if you want to, you are more than welcome to do that and see what it looks like. Again, while we're going through this, kind of explore the software for yourself too. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and say okay. And then now you'll notice this document is now in 2 columns throughout the rest of it. And when we did that, you'll see that now we're only on 4 pages. So before we had 5 pages with about this much left over on that 5th page, and now we've only got this little bit on page 4. And again, so you can see what that, we've got this top text is in 1 page or 1 column, and then down here we're in 2 columns. And again, if I click up here and look at my columns, I can see this is 1 column. Click down here, and then now we're in the 2 column view. All right. So again, I'm going to go to the top of my document to get back. And again, while we're going through this, if you need to go ahead and save it while we're working, go ahead and click that little save button whenever it's convenient for you. I mean, I'll typically do it after every few steps, just in case I make a mistake somewhere. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead to that view, to my view, look at it in multiple pages. So now we can see, get a feel for what that document looks like. All right. And then you can see we've got these different headings automatically built in already. Some tables in here. All right, I'm going to go back to my 100%, and I'll go a little bit more than that again so you can, so it's easier for you to see it. All right. So now we're going to go to the bottom of page 1 where it says this malaria, a serious health risk. All right, we're going to put our insertion point directly in front of that M in malaria. And again, so you can see we've got this heading right here and a little bit of text, but then the rest of this portion of this article is all on this next page. So we don't want to break it right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to automatically break that page right there. So we're going to just come up to our layout group again, and then we're going to click on breaks. And then we're just going to, we don't want a section break, a page section break. We're just going to go ahead and click page because we want to break the page right there. And then you'll see that malaria is now starting at that this top of that next page. Okay, so let's go down to that preventative options for serious travel. And then we're going to come down to put our insertion point directly in front of that heading for preventative options. And then what I'm going to do is hold my control key and hit enter. And it's going to do the same thing. Control enter automatically creates a next page break. And so you can see it says page break right there, just like it does right up here, page break. And then up here, we've got our continuous section break. And again, the document is telling us what kind of breaks we have, so we know, we have a better idea. But you'll notice that if we click down here, we're still in section 2. So all this 2-column stuff is this second column, or this second section, while this top portion, that the kind of the banner of our letter, is into that the 1-column width. All right, and so now we're going to go up and we are going to go to our page break on page 2. Oh, let's go, or sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Now we're going to go to the bottom of page 3. And again, you can, when you're on it, you can see what page we're on right now. We're on page 2 of 4. And then here's page 3. We're going to go to the bottom of page 3. And we're going to come right in front of this insurance for travelers. We're going to click immediately before that. And then again, you can either control enter or click that page break, either way. All right, so now when we did that, you can see we've got this whole boatload of room in this column. And so now we want to go ahead, let's go back and come up to the bottom of page 2. And now let's delete this. So again, you're just going to bring your insertion point, right before that. And I'm going to hit my delete key, and then we'll delete that out of there. I'm going to hit it one more time because I want to get rid of that big green paragraph mark as well. Because I only want those 2 paragraph marks under there. All right, so now let's go to this where it says medical kit. And so now there's a little bit of room here. We want room to add our table. So we're going to come to this medical kit, and then this is where we're going to decide on our page break. I'm going to control enter, or if you want, again, go up to your layout tab, insert just a normal page break. It'll do the same thing. And so now if we can take a look at it, now it looks, we've got this page is fleshed out a little more fully. There's not so much white space. And then once we put this table in, we're going to put a table in over here. Once we do that, it'll look a little more normal. All right. So again, if you want to take a look at what that looks like in multiple pages, go ahead and take a look to get, again, and I always want to try to go back and get a feel for what that document looks like. I'm going to zoom back to 100%, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit again, and then save my changes so far. So any questions so far or comments or anything? Otherwise, I'll just keep on going, keep on talking.
No, thank you.
Okay. And so don't let me get too far ahead if something happens like yesterday. All right, so now we're going to insert page numbers. Page numbers is knowing how to use page numbers is a really cool skill, but it does take a little bit of practice, especially when you're working in multiple sections. The page numbers that we're going to do right now are not going to be that difficult, but using page numbers in a multi-page document with many sections can get a little tricky. So thankfully, we're not going to do the tricky stuff right now. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to Control Home, or go back to the beginning of my document. And then I'm going to go to my Insert tab. And then here you can see we've got all these different options to insert, but over in our header and footer group, we've got a header, a footer, and then the page number option. So let's click on that little drop down for page numbers, and it's going to give us what our options are. And so you can see we've got an area for the top of page, and this gives you a hint of what it's going to look like, or a little preview. So if we've got our plain number 1, plain number 2, which puts it in the center, plain number 3 aligns it on the right, and then all these different bold, plain, brackets, large italics, Roman numerals. And we've got it kind of got the same options on the bottom of the page. And then you can see we've got page margins, the little accent bars up there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to hover over that bottom of page area, and we're going to choose that plain number 2 option. And so now we've got that page number, so you can see we're on page 1, and then it automatically goes to the next page numbers itself, page 2, page 3, and page 4. And so one thing I will say is that when you are working in your headers and footers, so right now we're working in our footer section, and you can see it says footer section. It says we've got the header footer contextual tab is open right now. When you're working in your header and footer section, the rest of your document kind of fades out a little bit, so it looks a little weird. And that's only because Word won't let you work in your header and your document at the same time, because they're two totally different sections. And so you'll have the choice to work in the header or the document. So right now you can see my footer section where I've got that page number is crisp and that black automatic black color. If I double click in my document, now you can see that it's kind of grayed out a little bit, it's faded, but that's just because now our document is active. And you can see we no longer have that contextual tab up here. We've only got well, you might not have the Acrobat. I have the Acrobat because I have the Acrobat extension on mine. And again, if you double click in the header and footer section, it'll turn on back to your header and footer. And then if you want to work in your document, either double click down here, or you can click on that close header and footer section, and it will do the same thing. All right, so I'm going to double click on my text to navigate back to my document. And then you can go ahead and save your changes if you want to. And now we're going to add some headers and footers to the document. So we just added a page number, but we can also do a little bit more customization with our headers and footers. So I'm going to go back to again, you can either double click up here or insert, and then in your header footer group, we're going to click on header. So I clicked on that little header option, and again, you've got all these built-in ones. And then you can edit it, you can remove it. There's more, if you're connected to the internet, you can go on office.com and download more of them if you want. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to insert a blank header, just the blank one. So I'm just going to click on blank, and it's just going to give me my type here text up at the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to type the text, reason to go, health information for travelers. So reason to go, health information for travelers. All right, so I've got that text selected. I'm going to go ahead and either click and drag across it, or I prefer to use my left margin, that right pointing arrow, to select the whole text in one shot. So we're just going to select all of that text. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to change it to the Berlin Sans Demi FB text. And so that right down there. And then again, you can either scroll to it or you can type Berlin, but we want the Berlin Sans FB Demi. And so that's the text that's down in our document. And we also want to change the color to blue accent 5. So, and again, you can use your ribbon or you can use this mini toolbar. So I'm going to just change it to blue accent color 5. And then I'm also going to center my text. So you can either, the center option was in there. You can hit Control E to center, or you can come up to your Home tab and center it within your paragraph group. And then the one last thing we're going to do, we're going to add a border to this. So we're going to just click right here. The default is a bottom border. So I'm just going to click on this and it's automatically going to put that, oopsie, sorry. It's automatically going to put that bottom border below that reason to go health information. All right, so far so good. All right, so I'm coming back to my header and footer group. And then right now we're in our header, but then you'll notice in this little navigation pane, and again, I'm in my header footer contextual tab, we've got this option that says previous and next, these navigate our pages, but we also have this option that says go to footer. I'm just gonna click on go to footer and it'll automatically bring my insertion point down to my footer. All right, and now I'm just gonna go ahead and change the style of that page number as well. So I'm just gonna select that page number. And again, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna change it to that Berlin Sans FB Demi, and this is going to be right up at the top near our recently used fonts. And then I'm also going to just click on that little font color arrow because the last thing I did was that blue accent 5, and that's what I want to change that to. All right, so we've got that formatted, our page number up here. We've added this header up at the top. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close my footer. Either do that in your, your header and footer group, or you can double click into the document to do it. Either way. All right. So I'm going to go Control Home again to go to the top of my document. I haven't navigated away from it much, so. All right, so back to the top of my document. And now the one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go, I don't want the page number to display on page 1 on the first page because it's obviously the first page. I'm going to come up, double click in my either header or footer, doesn't really make a difference. And I'm going to come up to this, and this, again, you have to be on the page that you want different. And so in this case, we want this first page to be different, but we want to get rid of the header and footer on this page. So we're going to say different first page. When we click on that, it eliminates our header and footer on page 1, but it keeps our header and footer on the rest of the pages. So if you scroll through that, you can see that header and footer should still be on pages 2 through 4, but right now we've eliminated it from page 1. And again, because it's, it says reason to go health information for travelers right here. It's a little superfluous to have it up here as well. So we've got that modified. I'm going to go ahead and close that header and footer. Then now we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert a table into this document. So again, where we had that big space on the page 2, this preventative options for serious travelers, we're going to add it right here. So we're going to scroll it down until we see that, and then we're going to select that heading. I'm just going to select that heading and the 2 paragraphs below it. Come on, there we go. So we've got the heading selected and then the 2 paragraph marks below. And then here, we're going to change this to 1 column. So I've got, and again, it's only going to apply to this section of my document because this is all I've got selected. So make sure we get the correct area selected, the preventative options for serious travel, so that whole heading and the 2 paragraph marks on below it. And then again, I'm coming up to my layout tab and then columns and 1. And then again, you'll see, so it shifted everything up. And then now I've got this big section break right here. Again, so you can see it created a continuous section break. Sorry, she's heading for a family walk. And then I've got a continuous section break here. I've got a continuous section break here. My page break is right here. And so now if we look at this, I'm going to come up to my document, the top for a second. And if you want to follow this, you can. If you want to stay where you are, that's totally fine too. But now you can see at the top of my document, I'm on section 1. If I move into the body of this, I'm in section 2, into this 2 column stuff. Now if I come down here, I'm in section 3. And then if I go below that, I'm in section 4. And so this is the important part of if you've got that option turned on to view your sections, so you can kind of get an idea of where you are in your document and how many different sections you've created. All right, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to bring my insertion point into that blank paragraph mark directly below that preventative options for serious health travel or travel health issues. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert a table here. So this is going to be on my insert tab. And then I want to choose this table option. And I'm going to customize my table. So I want to make it 5 columns by 6 rows. So I can do 5 columns by 6 rows, or we can just do insert table and change it that way. All right, so then it pops in this table right below it. And so here we can go ahead and we can start entering some information. So I'm going to come up to this top, and so this we're going to add some different drugs that we can use for these health issues, and they're also going to add the health issues. So in this first box up here in the top, I'm going to type disease. And then I'm just going to navigate to the next one. So I'm using my arrow keys right now. You can use your tab as well. But then it's going to be vaccine. And then prophylaxis drug. Prophylaxis drug. And then we've got eat and drink safely. And then finally at the top, avoid insects. And then we don't have to worry about this. We're going to fix this in a little bit. And then down here under the diseases, I'm going to go down. So now it's going to be malaria. And then typhoid, hepatitis A, cholera, and finally, Japanese encephalitis. Japanese encephalitis, okay. All right, so we've got those labels in for our columns and rows. And then now we're gonna create a little like a check mark in here. So we can indicate which, whether you need a vaccine, a drug, if you just have to watch what you're eating, avoiding insects. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna populate this with a check mark. And so that's gonna be it's gonna be a special symbol. It's not directly on our keyboard. So I'm just gonna come over to this, we're under vaccine and typhoid. And so for this one, it's gonna be typhoid, hepatitis, cholera, and Japanese encephalitis all can be alleviated by a vaccine. So I'm just gonna click right in this, second column, third row. And then I'm gonna come up to my insert tab. And then way over here on the right side, we've got our equation and symbol group. I'm going to click on that symbol option, and then I'm going to go to the check mark. So I'm going to click on more symbols, And then here, it's going to be, and so you can see these are all the different options we have for, where did it go? All right, it might just tell me to. Oh, it might be I think it's a wingding actually. So I'm gonna go down here to my wingdings. And so we've got wingdings and webdings. So here's my wingdings. And then let's go to it. And if you see it first, you can say there, oh, there it is right there. So it's right over here. Otherwise, if you don't see it, change this to wingding and then just type in 252 as your symbol code. And then that's it right there. So now that we found it once, it's easy. It's going to be easy to get back there. So I'm going to click insert and then close. And so I've got it in here. And so what we can do is we can copy this and paste it into all the ones that we need. Or now that we've got it, we can just click, go to symbol, and then now it's the first thing, it's the last thing we've used. So I'm just going to click in there and I'll do it that way. If you want to copy paste it, you can copy and paste it. And again, so other than malaria, there's vaccines for everything else. Malaria has a drug, so we're going to click on the drug option for that. And then typhoid and cholera can be prevented by eating safely. So typhoid and cholera. And then finally, insects, malaria, and Japanese encephalitis will have check marks for those. All right, now I'll turn this off, my formatting marks off for a minute so you can see. Again, so this is what it should look like. We've got our diseases across the top, or sorry, the treatments for our diseases across the top. Our diseases are in rows, and then these check marks are in the different boxes. All right, so now that we've got that taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to fix this table a little bit so we can customize it. So I'm going to come up here and select that whole table. So there should be a little kind of four-way pointing arrow thing up at the top of left corner of that table. I'm going to go ahead and select that to select my table. And then I've got my table design tools, and I've got my table layout options. I'm going to choose my layout options. And then right over here in my cell size group, I've got this option to auto fit. I'm going to click on that little drop down. And then I can choose auto fit contents or auto fit window or like a fixed column. And so the difference is we're going to choose the auto fit window. But the difference is if we did an auto fit contents, it's going to shrink this table down to the smallest size it can be. If we auto fit window, it's going to format this so that it takes up the whole page. And that's what we want. We want to look at it across the whole page because we've made this into one column at this point. So I'm just going to come over here and say auto fit window. Come on. All right, why didn't it do it? So let me try it again. I select it that way. Huh. Oh, you know what? It's because it's already auto fit to the window. That's why. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come out here and just drag that over a little bit and then do the same thing here. Drag this vaccine again. So if you need to fit your columns to your text, you can do that as well. All right. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my text over. So these columns right here, those three. So I'm going to get that, hover over that top border, get that little down pointing arrow, click and hold and drag it across. And then here I want to go ahead and say I want to align to the center. And that's going to bring everything to the center. All right, so these ones are okay to be over at this end. And so now we've got this table in here, and we can format this table to our liking. And again, so we've got it. We're going to come up to our table design tab, and now we have all these different options to choose for our table. And so we're going to go ahead and choose the list table 3 accent 5. So here's our list tables, and here's our list table 3, and here's our accent 5. We're going to select that, and then you'll notice it bolds our headings, and then it bolds our row headings as well. So our column headings and our row headings are bold. All right, any questions with that so far? So I feel like I'm dropping a lot on you right now. We're all good? Okay. Hopefully I don't find out in like 10 minutes that, oh yeah, we both left, we had to leave. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add footnotes and endnotes to this document. And so we've got some citations that we're gonna add because we wanna make sure that we give credit where credit is due. So again, I'm gonna go back to the beginning of my document, and then we're gonna go to that first body paragraph. It says the number of people traveling internationally, blah, 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 blah. So we've got some statistics up here. And so we wanna make sure that we cite that information, you know, where it's coming from. So I'm gonna go to the, this also applies to travelers, such as, all right, so we're gonna go to the first body paragraph in the second column right over here, because we've got, this also applies to travelers visiting most major cities, blah, 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 such as conference centers or resorts. So we wanna cite our information for that. So we're gonna bring our insertion point after the word resort, and then after the period as well. And we're gonna come up to this, our references tab, and we've got endnotes and footnotes. We wanna go ahead and we're gonna insert a footnote. So again, here's our footnotes and here's our endnotes. We wanna go insert footnote. So just click on that, and you'll see it automatically puts that little superscript 1 right into the document. And then right down here, we've got a border, like a semi-border, and then we have the little 1 right there as well. And so we're going to type the text for this footnote that says, behavior is a critical factor period. For example, comma, going outdoors in a malaria endemic area could result in becoming infected. And I'll type it and say it. For example, comma, going outdoors in a malaria endemic area, and that's hyphenated, could result in becoming infected. Period. All right. So again, behavior is a critical factor. For example, going outdoors in a malaria endemic area could result in becoming infected. Right now I'm going to place my insertion point at the end of the second column of text after health. So here's our right here. So our second column of text right here at the very end of it, and then after health. And then we're going to insert another footnote. So I'm going to click insert footnote, and then you'll see it automatically pops in that second one, and then it brings me down to number 2. And here I'm going to type, it is best to consult a travel medicine specialist. It is best to consult a travel medicine specialist. All right, so now I'm going to continue to add a couple more. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of page 3, so I can look at that bottom half of page, come on, bottom half of page 3. And then we'll get rid of this page, this break here in a second. And so now I want to go to at the end of the medications taken on a regular basis. All right, so here it's in this bulleted group, this other important items, medications taken on a regular basis at home. I'm going to bring my insertion point after that, and then I'm going to type in a footnote again. So I'm going to come up to my references, insert footnote, and then you can see now I'm on a new page, but I'm on footnote number 3. Again, it inserts the superscript, brings me down to the bottom footer area, or just above the footer, excuse me. And then we can go ahead and type in the text, all medications should be stored in carry-on luggage. Comma, in their original containers and labeled clearly. All medications should be stored in carry-on luggage in their original containers and labeled clearly. All right, and then we're going to go after the sunscreen in that bulleted list, so it's just a couple more down. And then we're going to insert another footnote. So insert a footnote, and then SPF 15 or greater. So SPF 15 or greater. And then now we're going to come over to this first aid items. So now you can see we're going to go after this disposable gloves. And so now we're kind of backtracking because we have these 2 more items over here that we've added these footnotes for. But now we forgot, oh my gosh, we have to do the disposable gloves, but we want our footnotes to be in order. Well, the program is so smart that it does that for us. So we're just going to go ahead and say insert footnote, and then it automatically renumbers those other ones. So the old footnote number 3 is now footnote 4, old footnote 4 is now number 5, and we've got this new footnote 3 for disposable gloves. And I'm going to say at least 2 pairs. And after the scissors, safety, pins, and tweezers bullet, we're going to insert another one there. And then again, insert a footnote. And then we're going to say, pack these items in checked luggage. All right. So now we've got these footnotes in. So you can see we've got 6 footnotes in here. We've had with 2 of them on the first page, and then we're going to get rid of that old page 3. And then on the third page we have 4 more. So we've got 6 total. So I'm going to go to again to the beginning of my document, go to Control Home, and then once I'm up here, I'm going to click on this thing that says Next Footnote. I'm going to click 1 time, and then it's going to bring me right to this first footnote. And so it brings my insertion point right here. And then if I hover over that footnote, you can see it. I have like a little index card looking icon, and if I hover, it says behavior is a critical factor, for example, blah, blah, blah. So it shows us the text of that footnote, which I think is pretty cool. And then I'm going to go to the next one. So next footnote, it brings me to the next one, that number 2, and then go to the next one. And then this one, we say, you know what? We don't really need this. So it automatically brings my insertion point there. I'm going to hit my delete key once. It's going to select that number. I'm going to select it 1 more time, and then it automatically takes that footnote out. And so we decide we didn't want that footnote. We're going to go ahead and just keep it limited at 5. All right. So I'm going to go. So did either of you get this blank page on page 3?
I did, yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to come back up to my formatting marks and see what's going on. So I've got this page break right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that page break. And so you can see there's still a page break here after the section break for me, but for some reason it added that, it looked like it had an additional page break. So if you do that, did it fix it, Tina?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So that's what it should look like at this point. All right, so now let's go ahead. Now we're going to insert some citations. So we've inserted that footnote. Now we're going to insert some citations. So if you're, old school like me and you had to do like a works cited page, this is going to be like mind-blowing for you. So I'm going to scroll down and go to the, where am I going? To the bring my insertion point after the people travel section, and this is in our first paragraph of the first column of text. To do the number of people traveling internationally. Where is that? Oh, for the reasons people travel. Okay, so it's at the end of the first paragraph. Okay, so when we're doing our footnotes, the footnotes are going to go outside of the period for either the sentence or the paragraph or whatever. When we're doing a citation, the citation is going to go inside the period. So it's going to go after the word, but before the period for that, whatever we're citing. And so I'm going to come to after the word travel, but before the period. And then here, I'm going to come up to my reference tab again. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm in my MLA formatting because that's what I want to use. If you click on that little down pointing arrow, come on, there we go. You can see we've got APA, Chicago, all these different style sets built right in. We want to make sure we're using MLA. So I'm just going to click on MLA. And we're actually right now, I think, in the MLA 8th or 9th version as opposed to the 7th that it's showing here. But we're going to click on MLA to make sure we're in the MLA format. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert a citation. So right over here, I'm going to go ahead and say insert citation. And then you can see the document already has a couple built in for us, so we don't have to type this one. But we are going to, which one are we going to use? Oh, we are going to add a new source. So we're going to say add a new source. So we've got some built in, but we want to put a new one in. So we're going to say add a new source. And then it's going to open up this source dialog box. And so here you can see we can choose what kind of source we are including. And then it's going to reformat this based on that. And so we want to say that we're going to do a report. So click on that little drop-down arrow and then navigate to report. And then we're going to check the checkbox for a corporate audio. All right, or sorry, corporate audio, corporate author. And so we're going to click on that little box right there. Close that. And for the corporate author, and then we're going to go ahead and we are going to enter for this corporate author, World Tourism Organization. The World Tourism Organization. The title of this report is Tourism Highlights. The year of the report is 2017. I'm going to tab to the next field. The publisher is World Tourism Organization. And then it's from Madrid. So the city is Madrid. The type is a white paper, a white paper. Back here, paper. And then the medium is print. So, print, all right. And so you can see it automatically creates a tag for us. And we're not going to use those tags right now, but it automatically creates this those were 17. And so what it's doing is it's basing that tag on the first letters of the author and then the year it was published. And so for me, if I wrote an article in 2019, it would say MUE 19 would be my tag for that article. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to OK. All right, I'm going to close that little researcher dialog box. And so we've got that selected. So far, so good. All right. And so now if I come over here, you can see where I've inserted my citation, it's now this inserted field. So if I hover over it, it kind of turns it gray. And so that way I know it's a field. I'm just going to hover over that and I'm going to click one time. And then you'll see that it has this little box that pops open. And I'm going to click on that little drop down. And so here again, now you can see I've got some options. I can edit my citation, which is this thing, World Tourism Organization box that popped up. I can edit my source, which is the source that I just entered. I convert it to static text, so it's no longer a field. And then if I made any changes, I can update my citations and bibliography. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say edit citation. And so it says, how do I want to edit it? And I'm going to say, I want to type in the page number 19. All right. And then OK. And so now I have World Tourism Organization 19. And then again, there's other options to, if you wanted to edit citation, if you needed to suppress the author or suppress the year, you can click on those options as well. You know, depending on what style you're using for your formatting, whether it's APA, MLA, Chicago, they all cite a little bit differently. And so if we needed to suppress any one of those items, we can check those boxes right there. So if we wanted to suppress that author, if we clicked this, it would change it to just 19 and it would get rid of that World Tourism Organization. All right, so we've added that in there. And so now let's go ahead, we're going to go to our next one. So after this italicized quotation right here, after the word, risks of adverse health consequences, again, I'm going to bring my insertion point after the S, but before the period. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that in my citation. I'm going to say insert citation. And then here, I am going to click add a new source. So I want to add another new source here. And then this time, I'm going to say document from a website. So I don't see it right here, but you can see I've got other options. So document from a website. The author for this, again, it's a corporate author. It's the World Tourism Organization. All right, and then the name of the web page is International Travel and Health 2017 edition. All right, and the name of our website is World Tourism Organization website. Tourism. And the year is 2017. It's from January 10th, so month January 10th. And then this is important. So when we're citing, nowadays when we're citing a website, it's important to cite when that material was published, but it's also important to cite when you access that material. So I'm going to say for the year accessed is 2017, March 11th. So 2017, March 11, and then the medium for this is web. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. We've got, so hopefully if you don't have all that in, and you can chime in and say, wait, let me finish typing it. Otherwise, I'm going to click OK to, and again, you can see it's World 17.1 now, because we've got, we already have a WER 17. This is a WER 17.1 because it's the next part of our, and it's from January. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom of page 2. And I'm going to go to the bottom of that table. So right down below the table, I'm going to bring my insertion point. And then here, I'm going to type source. And then colon. And then space. And I'm going to hit my Control I. It's going to italicize, or you can go to your home tab and put the italicize button. And then I'm going to click on the Johnson one. So I'm going to say insert citation, so references, insert citation, and I'm just going to come down to this Margaret Johnson one and click on that. And then it automatically populates that citation. And so I'm going to click on it here and then edit it to add the page number 55. So edit citation, and then change that page to 55, and then say OK. And there we go. And I want to make sure that's italicized. All right. So then we can go ahead and save our work. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to manage our sources, and we're going to create a bibliography for this document. So I'm going to go down to the very end of my document. So you can either scroll to navigate, or you can do Control End. It'll take you to the very end. All right, and then I'm going to put my insertion point at the end of that document, and then I'm going to click on my Manage Sources button. So if you've navigated away from your references, it's in the References tab, Captions, or excuse me, Citations and Bibliography group. I'm going to say Manage Sources. And so now you can see that here's our master list of sources, and here's our current list. So we've got some that are in the document, and the ones that we're using right now have the little check mark next to them. The ones that we're not using don't have a little check mark by them. So we're going to go to that one that's from Mary Baker. We're going to click on that, and we can see we've got a preview of what it looks like right down here. Baker, My Adventures in Africa. For this one, since we're not using it, I'm going to go ahead and say delete it. So click on delete, and it gets rid of that one for us. And then that's the only one I'm going to delete right now. If there was other ones that we weren't using, which we should, you would click on that, you delete them out of there. But if you're using that information, then they should be included. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this. And then I'm going to come up here to this bibliography option. I'm going to click on that little down pointing arrow for bibliography. Then you can see there's some different built-in bibliographies. So we've got a bibliography, a references, a work cited. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to select that references. So click references, and then it automatically populates that references are basically our reference page, and it automatically formats it to the MLA formatting. So if we were right now, if we were to change this to the APA style, it would reformat that in the APA style. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to match this references to these other headings. So I'm going to select the text references, and I'm going to change it to that Berlin Sans FB Demi. And then I'm going to change the color to green accent 6 to match those other ones. And then it's also a little bit big right now. I want to change it to 11-point font because that's what the other little subheadings are. All right, so I've got formatting applied to that. And so now I can see them at the bottom of page 4 where that is. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my view options and then look at multiple pages so I can see what that document looks like. So I'm making it a little bit smaller, but so you can kind of get an idea of the feel of this document. So here's we have this one column at the beginning. We changed this to 2 columns. We've got that break. I can turn off my break so we don't have to look at those. A couple citations down here at the bottom. No header and footer on the first page, but you can see we've got our headers and footers with the page numbers on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th pages. We've got that table we added in. We've got more footnotes, and then we've got that bibliography right over here at the end. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change this back to 100%. For me, it's going to show it on 2 pages again. I'm going to say save, and then that project is finished. So you both still with me?
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Alem? Are you still there or? No?
Oh.
Hopefully, yes. All right, so any questions about any of that, Tina?
No, there were just a few things I didn't have, few choices I didn't have. So
Okay, like what?
the references, when I went into bibliography, I only have bibliography and works cited. I can't.
Okay. So did you just choose one of them?
I didn't. But
Oh, okay.
I guess I could have, but yeah.
Yeah, so I
But
would
otherwise, yeah, it's
I
just
would just go
sometimes
ahead
it's mine are in different places, so it takes me a little bit more to find. Like sometimes I have to right click to find it. So just takes me a little bit more longer.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Mine's just set up differently. So
Right.
I eventually find it on my own. So
Okay. Well, I mean, and if you need me to slow down so you can find it, by all means, just say, hey, slow down so I can find this.
I'm usually able to catch up.
Okay. All right. So there's that other project. I don't know if we could start that other one. I don't know if we can do it in 15 minutes. But if you wanted to start that one, we could start it. If you want to take a little break before that PowerPoint stuff, you are welcome to do that too. I'll let you decide what you want to do. But if you want to work on that other project, it's going to kind of review some of those same skills again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine doing either.
Okay. I mean, if you want to work on that other one, I'm more than happy to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, I could take a break too. Okay. I could do either.
Well, if you want to take a break, you can take a break.
Yeah. That was quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, we did a lot with that project.
Yeah.
Sections and working in the headers and footers and inserting different kinds of breaks but again, it's all like good stuff to help you kind of format your document in a very professional way. I think it looks very professional.
Yes, from where it started.
Yeah. All right. So I will let you take a little break.
Okay, sounds good.
I will see you again shortly.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Sure, bye.
Bye-bye.